A dark conspiracy unraveled. May 17, 1974. A sunny Friday evening in Ireland. The streets of Dublin pulse with the rhythm of rush hour, and the quiet border town of Monaghan hums with ordinary life. Then, in a flash, chaos erupts. 4 car bombs detonate without warning, tearing through the heart of Ireland, leaving 34 dead, 300 injured, and a nation reeling. Who orchestrated this carnage? Why did the trail to justice go cold? And what shadowy forces might have pulled the strings behind the deadliest attack of the Troubles? Step with me into the fog of history, where truth is buried under layers of deception, and the Ulster Volunteer Force's bloody handprint is only part of the story. The day the sky fell, it's 5:30 p.m. in Dublin, May 17, 1974. The city is alive with workers heading home, shoppers bustling through the streets, and families preparing for the weekend. Parnell Street, Talbot Street, and South Leinster Street, 3 arteries of the capital, are packed. A bus strike has forced even more people onto the pavements, unaware that death is ticking closer. Then, in a span of just 90 seconds, 3 car bombs explode in a coordinated symphony of destruction. The blasts are so precise, so devastating, that an Irish Army bomb disposal expert later marvels at their craftsmanship. 100% of each bomb's payload detonates, shredding everything in its path. Glass shatters, buildings crumble, and screams pierce the air. 26 lives are snuffed out in Dublin alone, including an entire family, a pregnant woman, and a French Jewish woman whose family had survived the Holocaust, only for her to meet her end in this senseless slaughter. 90 minutes later, 130 miles north in Monaghan, a 4th bomb rips through a pub, claiming 7 more lives. The victims range from a 5-month-old baby to an 80-year-old World War I veteran. Ordinary people caught in a war they didn't choose. The Ulster Volunteer Force, U.V.F., a loyalist paramilitary group from Northern Ireland, would not claim responsibility until 1993, nearly 2 decades later. But the whispers began immediately. Was this really just the work of a rogue paramilitary outfit? Or was there a darker, more powerful hand guiding the carnage? A web of suspicion. The Dublin and Monaghan bombings weren't just an act of terror. They were a calculated strike, designed to sow fear and destabilize the Irish Republic. The timing was no accident. The bombings coincided with the Ulster Workers Council strike, a loyalist-led protest against the Sunningdale Agreement, a power-sharing deal that proposed a role for Dublin in governing Northern Ireland. To the U.V.F. and their allies, this was a betrayal, a step too far toward a united Ireland. The bombs, some believe, were a violent message: stay out of our affairs or pay the price. But here's where the story takes a chilling turn. The bombs were sophisticated, too sophisticated, some argued, for a paramilitary group like the U.V.F. to pull off alone. Irish Army Commandant Patrick Triers noted the bombs' precision, suggesting they bore the hallmarks of professional military expertise. Rumors swirled of collusion, with fingers pointing to elements within the British security forces. A 2003 inquiry led by Justice Henry Barron lent weight to these claims, finding it likely that members of the Royal Ulster Constabulary, RUC, and Ulster Defence Regiment, UDR, either participated or knew of the attacks. A farm owned by an RUC officer, James Mitchell, was identified as a key staging ground for the UVF's Glenanne Gang, a group linked to 120 murders in the 1970s and 1980s. The 2018 RTA documentary Collusion dropped a bombshell. The bombings may have been orchestrated by British Army agents to spark a civil war, destabilizing Ireland and forcing a harder line against the IRA. A UVF member interviewed claimed the operation was meant to start a civil war, with British intelligence not just turning a blind eye but actively aiding the plot. Yet, successive British governments stonewalled inquiries, refusing to release key documents. Why? What were they hiding? The investigation that never was. The aftermath of the bombings was as shocking as the attacks themselves. The Irish government, led by the Fine Gael Labour coalition, vowed to pursue justice, but their actions told a different story. The Garda Síochána's investigation was shockingly brief, lasting mere weeks. Evidence was sent to Ulster for testing, a move one survivor called handing the sheep to the wolf. No one was ever charged, let alone convicted. The government refused a national day of mourning, citing the 1,000-plus deaths already in the Troubles, and initially declined to fly the national flag at half-mast, a decision quickly reversed after public outcry. The 2003 Barron report slammed the Garda's premature halt to the investigation and criticized the government's inaction and lack of interest. Families of the victims, through the campaign group Justice for the Forgotten, have fought tirelessly for answers. But the British government's refusal to release documents continues to block the truth. Was this incompetence or something more sinister? Were Irish authorities complicit in a cover-up or simply overwhelmed by the scale of the tragedy? A call to uncover the truth. The Dublin and Monaghan bombings remain a wound that refuses to heal. Survivors like Sandra O'Brien, who lost her sister and 2 young nieces, still attend memorials, haunted by unanswered questions. Why was the investigation stopped so quickly, she asks. Why did they send the evidence to Ulster? Aidan Shields, who lost his mother Maureen, points to the Talbot Street Memorial and laments, 99 out of 100 people passing here don't even know what happened. If you're as gripped by this mystery as I am, join us at Behind the Veil on YouTube, where we dive deeper into the secrets history tries to bury. Hit that subscribe button at https://www.youtube.com, all at Behind Veil Truths, and stay with us as we chase the truth through the shadows. The shadow of collusion. Let's pull back the curtain further. The U.V.F's belated admission in 1993 came only after an ITV documentary named them as the culprits in alleged British security force involvement. David Irvine, a U.V.F. member jailed for explosives possession in 1974, dismissed collusion claims as sheer unadulterated nonsense, pointing to the 240 U.V.F. members imprisoned at the time as proof of no widespread conspiracy. But others, like former RUC officer John Weir, convicted of a loyalist murder, claimed explosives were supplied by a UDR captain and assembled at an RUC officer's farm. The Glen Ann Gang, a shadowy U.V.F. unit, was implicated in a string of atrocities, with whispers of British military intelligence using loyalists as proxies to undermine the Sunningdale Agreement. The British ambassador to Ireland at the time, Arthur Galsworthy, noted that the bombings hardened attitudes against the IRA, suggesting Dublin had finally taken the point about violence. Was this the intended outcome? A psychological operation to shift blame and fracture Irish resolve? The refusal of British authorities to cooperate with inquiries only fuels suspicion. Even today, 2 ongoing investigations in Northern Ireland may uncover new details about the U.V.F's actions in the 1970s, but the clock is ticking for survivors and families seeking closure, a legacy of pain and questions. The Dublin and Monaghan bombings weren't just the deadliest day of the Troubles, they were a calculated act of terror that shook a nation to its core. 34 lives were stolen, 300 others scarred, and a shadow of suspicion cast over 2 governments. The bombs didn't just destroy bodies, they shattered trust, leaving a legacy of grief and unanswered questions. Why did the Irish government seem so reluctant to dig deeper? Why has the British government blocked access to critical files? And what role did rogue elements in the security forces play in this massacre?